Hey everyone, welcome back. So we're going to continue from our last video where we had set up the different factions and tweaked the player and the bullet, and now we'll be setting up the enemy ships. So first of all, I'm going to head over to the parent enemy, because we are first going to set up the common variables and behaviors that all of these can inherit. So first off, let's head to the create event, and we'll set up some important variables. Alright, so we know that all of the enemies are going to pick a random direction and be moving through the room in that direction. So let's declare some variables. I'm going to first set the speed, and I'll just set a base speed for these. So I'll just set 2. We might make some of them faster, but this will do us for now. We'll set a direction for them to go in. So let's go direction. And we'll set this to be anything in 360 degrees. So we'll go random range from 0 to 360. And finally, I want to also set its rotation of the sprite to match whatever direction that is, so that it's facing the direction that it's going. So image angle, we set to the direction. And finally, I'm also going to add an HP variable. I'm using HP just so that we're not using the built-in variable health. I'm just going to use my own one. So we'll set this to 1 for now, because a lot of them will just have 1 health. But for the brute, for example, I might make that one have more health. Alright, so another thing we know that all of the enemies are going to do is have some kind of destroy event. Perhaps we can get them to create some debris. So I'm going to head over to the asteroid, and I might just copy its destroy event. So down here we had this repeat loop where we just created 10 of the debris objects. I'm just going to highlight those, copy them, and head back to the parent enemy and paste that in. And I'll also get it to play a sound effect. So sound, and we'll do the die audio. Let's also have the enemies add to the score when they are killed by the player, and we can also maybe set some variation in the score, so perhaps like the raider can add less than the brutes or the hunters to reflect kind of the difficulty levels of them. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a switch statement, and depending on what kind of object it is, we are going to add different things to the score, like I said. Now, I could put this in their own respective destroy events, but for now, their code is so similar that I'm just going to leave it in this one. If it was much more complicated, I would maybe break it up. But for now, I think this is a little bit simpler. So what we're switching is called the object index. So this is what object it is. So is it a brute, a raider, or a hunter? So in the case that it's obj raider, then we are going to add to the score. But we do want to apply this to the game object, because that was keeping our score. And I might just copy this and paste it a couple more times. I'll change this to obj hunter and brute. And I'll set the hunters one to 30 and maybe 50 for the brute. Alright, cool. So that is the destroy code set up for the enemy. Now, just like the player and the asteroid, I'm also going to add a take damage user event. So you remember user event 1 was our taking damage one. And so remember, we just set up this HP variable, and we're going to treat it like we don't know how much HP these have currently. They might have 1, they might have 5. So what we're just first going to do is take away some HP. So I'm going to subtract -1 from HP relative to what it's currently equal to. And then we're going to check if HP is less than or equal to, actually, less than or equal to 0, then we want to destroy it. And we put less than or equal to just in case we have taken multiple damage. At the moment, that's kind of impossible because we've only said -1, but we might change that in the future. Alright, cool. So now we have the taking damage event set up. It's going to subtract from its HP, and if it has 0, it will destroy it, and then it will run this code. Now, the last thing I'm going to add is I'm going to make the enemies wrap around the room if they go outside of it, just like the player. So let's actually just quickly head over to the player. So we're just going to copy this wraparound room block, and we'll put the same thing in the enemy. All right, so now all of our enemies will be inheriting all of this code, and we can go ahead and customize them a little bit. So I mentioned that I wanted to change a few of these variables in the brute. I think the raider and the hunter will keep most of these, but let's head over to obj brute. And we can see right here all of these kind of ghost events showing that it is inheriting from its parent. What we're going to do is overwrite this, so we're going to override the event, but we still want to run the code from the parent. At the moment, what we just did means it kind of doesn't inherit from the parent, as you can see by this little cross. So we have to remember to drag in the call parent event if we still want it to run the parent's event. So once it does that, we are just going to tweak a couple of the variables. So I'm going to set its speed equal to 1 instead of 2, so it's going to be a little bit slower than the other ones. I'm also going to set its HP to 5 instead of 1, so this one will take a few hits to kill. And then finally, if you remember, actually, if we just head to its sprite, this one had 5 frames, and normally if you have an object like this with multiple frames, it's going to animate when it's in the game like this, which is not what I wanted. I wanted these individual frames to be representations of the brute's health, or rather its shields, where this represents it at full health and it reducing health down to 1. So I want it to stop animating, and what I'm going to do, we could actually do this in here, we can set that to 0, or we could set it in here as image speed equal to 0. Great, so now we have the brute customized a little bit. So I think that is it for the initial setup of the enemies. What I might do now is just test that they're all being created properly and all of our setup is actually working. So let's come over to the game object, and we're going to get the game to spawn our enemies. So if you remember in the room start, where we were spawning the asteroids down the very bottom with our script that we made called spawn off camera, we set up 2 arguments. So this one, the object that it's going to create, and then the number of objects to create. And we can use this same one to create our enemies. So I'm just going to copy and paste that in 3 times. And we're going to put in obj raider. And let's say 8 of those. obj hunter, and let's say just 5 of those. And obj brute, and we'll do just 3. Alright, so they should be spawning now. So let's go ahead and run the game and have a look at those. So we want to see if, for example, their color is red, that they're part of the right faction. We want to check if we can hit them with our bullets and that our collision's working. Great, so you can see that we can shoot them. We can also see that the brute is moving a lot slower, and it takes hopefully multiple hits to destroy the brute. Yes. Alright, cool. So that is it for our enemies and our setup. But now I want to change their individual behavior. So if we just come back to the parent enemy, what I'm going to do is get these 3 to respond to the player when we get within their range. So we're kind of going to be checking how far away we are from the player, and if we are within a certain radius, kind of like our detection radius, then we're going to change our behavior. So for example, we're just heading in one straight direction at the moment, maybe we'll give chase to the player or shoot at them. So let's do the raider first, because I think that would be, this one will be the simplest behavior. So we're going to hop into its step event, and just as before, we have to be careful that we do want to inherit this code to wrap around the room. So when we override, let's also drag in call parent. We need to be able to tell how far away we are from the player. So first of all, we're going to use a function call, because there isn't an action block for this one, but it is a function called point distance. So it's another of these handy point functions. And we can check how far away we are. So x1, y1 is from another point, x2, y2. So we need 4 arguments. The first 2, so the first point that we're checking is just our location. So we can do x, y. And then the other point that we're checking is just the ship. So we're going to go obj ship.x and obj ship.y. And then we want to save that into a temporary variable so we can go and check it in a second. And let's just save that in a very temporary variable called dist. Now, before we move on from here, we have to again be careful that because we are specifically referencing a instance that might not be existing. So remember, when the ship dies and it doesn't exist in the room, there's a few seconds before the room restarts, and in that time a raider might be moving past and trying to detect its distance from the ship, only the ship won't exist and we'll get an error. So we have to check if that instance actually exists. So I'm just going to type in exist and we'll check right here before we actually point to it if obj ship exists. Then we'll do that. And actually, if it doesn't, what I'm going to do is just get it to exit the code block. So I'm going to tick not. So if the ship does not exist, we won't perform any of the next code. All right. So now we just need to check. We have the distance, but we need to check if it is less than a certain distance. So this can be any number that you want. So maybe 250. So that's half the camera size. So if it's less than that, then we know that the player is quite close to the raider and we might want to change our behavior. And now, for the raider, what we're going to do is just, if the player is within its detection radius, we're going to get the raider to look at the player. So we need to get the direction kind of from the raider to the player, and we're going to shoot at it in that direction. So we need that direction, and it's going to involve, again, another function block. And this one is point direction. So we're going to get the direction from one point to another. There's 4 arguments. So point 1, again, it's going to be the same as this. So x, y. We already know that the ship does exist because of this check right here. If it didn't, we would be exiting and we wouldn't be able to run this. And we'll save that into a temporary variable called dir. So now we have the direction from us to the player. Now we can turn to actually look at the player. So let's do that. We're going to change our rotation. We could do this via just the variable change, or we can pull in the set instance rotation block. So just like that. No, we don't want it to be relative. This would be an absolute angle that we're turning to. And now what I'll do is if the player goes back outside of our range, I might turn back to face the angle that we're actually moving in. Because remember, we haven't changed our direction, we've just changed where we're facing. So again, if this isn't less than 250, we need an else statement. So if this is not the case, then we will set instance rotation. I'm just going to copy that back to our actual direction. So let's just give that a test and see if that actually works. It's always good to test at regular intervals. Let's find a raider, and we can see that it is turning to face us. All right, so there's a raider, and we just went inside and out of its detection radius. So it turns to face us, and then it turns back away. Great, so that works. Now we just have to get it to shoot at the player. So luckily, we've already done all of the hard work for creating a bullet. We have that handy create bullet script. So we're going to execute script, the create bullet one. All right, so we need to just tell the script what direction that we're creating the bullet in, and we already know what that is. It's this one right here. So we can put that in. And now a speed. So I think, the raider's bullets to be a bit slower than the player's. And the player had a speed of 6, so how about we just put 4? Now, if we test this, you'll see that the raider will be creating a very fast kind of stream of bullets every step, because this, of course, is set to run every step. So this is going to look a little bit weird, and I might want to have the raider only creating a bullet every few steps. So to do this, we need a counter that is kind of ticking up every frame of the game that's running, and then when it hits a certain value, then we can run this. So to do that, we need to go ahead and set that value. So again, we need to hop over to the create event, override this, make sure we are calling the parent, and then we are just going to set a new variable, and I'll just call this counter, or actually bullet counter. So it's set at 0 originally, and in here we are going to increment that counter. So bullet counter goes up by 1 every frame, and then we check if we have reached our kind of bullet threshold. So we're checking if the bullet counter is greater than or equal to, maybe we'll actually keep this to 1 second. So every second the raider can create a bullet. So that would be 60 steps. So if this is the case, then we will create a bullet, but we have to remember to reset this again back to 0, because otherwise as soon as we hit this threshold, this will be true forever after that. So we need to reset this back to 0. All right, so we're ready to test this. So we'll run the game, and we just want to be checking that the bullet is being created at the proper intervals and that it is part of the correct faction. So there we go, we've got our raider shooting at us. Depending on our speed and the speed of the raider, it's going to look more accurate or less accurate. If we're going quite fast, our direction relative to our enemy is going to be more. So we go, we've got a couple raiders shooting at us, and they did collide with us properly and cause us to die. Alright, so that is the raiders setup, and we can move on to the hunter. So I'm going to be reusing a lot of this code for the other ships, so I'm actually just going to be copy and pasting this. This might be a place where you could generalize this into scripts, so that actually might be a good task for you if you're wanting to just, for example, detect if the player is within a certain radius and have it turn to face it or something. If you find common threads of behavior, you might want to do that. So just like in the raider, we're going to override and paste that in. We also want to copy over the create event because we were initializing this create bullet, so I'll do that as well in the hunter. There we go. And we do want to make a few changes though. So unlike the raider, which just turns to face the ship, I'm going to get the hunter to turn and face the ship, shoot it, but also kind of move in and out from the player. It's not actually going to collide with the player, it's going to kind of duck and weave. So it's a little bit more complicated behavior. And before that even, I might actually make a few changes to how it's creating the bullets. I want it to shoot at a little bit faster than our raider, so I'm going to reduce 60 frames down to 40, and I will increase their bullet speed. So I might make that 8, so they're even faster than the player's bullets. Now, so remember what this all kind of means. We're checking here what our distance is from the ship, and if it is within our detection radius, we turn to look at it. So for this hunter, I'm also going to get it to change its direction to der. So now it's going to turn and come at the player at full speed. Like I said, I don't want it to collide with the player, so I want it to also detect if it is quite close. So we need another check of distance. So we're going to check if dist is less than, let's say, 150. So if we're quite close, then I want it to pull back. I'm going to reduce its speed. So I'm going to set speed. I'm going to subtract 0.05. It's quite a low number still, but that should give it enough kind of pullback in propulsion to come back out. Now, if this is not true, I want it to move forward at a not as fast rate, but still be moving forward. So we're going to go else, and I'm just going to copy this and pop it there. And I'll just make this 0.01. Now, I have been playing with these values, and I think this feels quite nice, but if you want to have a play as well, you might produce different behaviors. So now it should be going in and out of the player's range. It's going to, separate to all of this, be creating a bullet just like our raider. Now down here, when the player exits our detection radius, this will set our instance rotation back. We don't really need to be doing this since we are already facing the direction that we're going in. Up here, we were making sure that that was happening. But what I do want to do is set its speed back to its original speed. So I'm going to drag this in. because once we have been messing with the speed right here, it might be moving at a kind of strange speed, and maybe that's fine. Maybe you don't want to set it back after that because that's kind of interesting, but I might do that. So I'm going to set speed back to 2. That was its original speed, and that should be it for the hunter. So let's go ahead and test that. So there's a hunter, it turns to shoot us. You can see its bullets are quite fast. And you can see it's moving in and out of our range. And due to its speed, we actually have to be quite careful around those hunters. But we can see, I think, that it's working quite well. Alright, so the only thing left to do now is the brute. Now again, I'm just going to copy all of this over, even though the brute will be acting quite differently. And in the step event, override and paste this in. I'm just going to dock my windows. Okay. Now, for the brute's behavior, I want it to, just like the others, have a detection radius. And instead of shooting at the player at all, I'm actually going to remove all of the shooting. We're going to get the brute to just kind of move towards the player at a faster and faster rate. So the brute's mission is kind of just to crash into the player's ship and blow it up that way. So we are going to remove all of this bullet counter stuff. I didn't actually copy over the bullet counter, so we don't need to delete it there. And we need to remove this. We will be checking the distance just like before. Like I said, you might want to kind of customize their detection radiuses. Maybe they have different ones for you. I might just leave it as it is. We do want to be getting the direction to the player because I want the brute to turn and face the player as it's moving towards it. I don't really care about this though. I don't need a second detection radius. But I do want it to speed up while this is happening. So while the player is within our detection radius, we're going to move faster and faster towards it. So we're just going to increase speed. And again, we'll keep this quite low. I'm going to just have this at 0.01 relative to whatever our current speed is. And yeah, we could reset that back to our original speed once this is not true. But remember, our original speed is not 2, it's 1 because we set it to 1 here. You might want to abstract that into a variable called original speed or something because a couple of our ships have already had that. That could become something that you put in the parent if you want. The last thing that I want to do for the brute, remember how our brute had different frames, and right now these aren't kind of displaying properly, it's just displaying this first one. I want it to be displaying the frame that is relative to its health. So right here is full health, that's 5. So if our health is 5, then we want to be displaying the 5th frame. Now that frame actually has an index of 4 because it starts at 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So our frame will kind of be equal to our health minus 1. So we can go ahead and set that up here. So we will set a image index. Again, we could be using an instance variable and using this dropdown. Doesn't really matter. But it can help if you're still learning the names of all of these. So image index. I'll just use that. And we will set this to, like I said, whatever HP is minus 1. You know what? No, I'm not doing it that way. So we can set this every frame, although we could also put it in its getting hurt event. So we'll set image index to HP minus 1. All right, now we can give that a run. So we want to be seeing that when we get close to the brute, it's going to follow us until we move out of its range again. So there we go, the brute is chasing us and it's speeding up. And as you saw, when we hit it, its frame was getting set properly. All right, awesome. So I think all of our ships are set up and we are done for this video. So we've created a really nice system for factions and enemies that will accommodate new objects if we add them in the future. And now in the coming videos, we're going to be working on some different power-ups like invincibility and some different guns for the player. And we'll also add some special particle effects towards the end to make the game a bit prettier, maybe some propulsion and destroy particles to give the game some nice polish. So I will see you in the next tutorial.